Good afternoon, everybody. It's Miss Rocky from Rocky's Rad Resources, here to teach you another quick mini lesson. Today we're going to be looking at reading comprehension strategies. As you know, if you've been following my YouTube channel, I have plenty of math mini lessons out there for you, but today we're going to start a new series based solely on reading comprehension strategies and how to make yourself a better reader. As always, this video is brought to you from our RV. From wherever I am to wherever you are, I can teach you whatever you need. Our first reading comprehension strategy is making text connections. Text connections are connections that we make between the stories that we read and our background knowledge. In order to understand that, we need to know, well, what is background knowledge? Background knowledge are the things that we already know. They are things that you could already know from things that we've already done, from places we've gone, from stories that our families have told us, from books or stories or articles that we've read, from TV shows or movies that we've seen, from people that we've talked to, or even from historical events we've learned about. And really, that's just a small piece. Anything that you do, anything that you experience becomes a part of your background knowledge. This video that you're watching right now, tomorrow will become a part of your background knowledge. So background knowledge is so important because it gives us an understanding. By experiencing things and reading things, this is how we build our understanding of the world. So the more background knowledge you have, the more understanding that you have, and the better text connections that you can make. There are 4 types of text connections. The first type that we're going to look at are text-to-self connections. And so a text-to-self connection, first let's look at text. The word text simply means something you read. It could be a story, it could be a play, a poem, a whole book. Anything that you read is a text. Kind of like a text message. A text message is technically text as well. We don't generally make as many connections with them, but it is text. And so we're going to make a text-to-self connection. Well, self would be you. So a text-to-self connection is just what it sounds like. It's a connection between something that we read and the things that we know from our own life. Okay? So it could be a connection between what you read and something that you've done. You read a story about somebody playing soccer, you play soccer, and you can make a connection. You can understand how that character is feeling because you've done it. Okay? We make connections based on places that we've been. You might have taken a trip to Disney World, and if you read about a child who's gone to Disney World, all of a sudden you can understand a little bit better than somebody who hasn't been to Disney World, because you can make that connection. You kind of know what's going on a little bit better. We make connections based on celebrations we've experienced. If you are in a family that celebrates Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or Eid, you might understand a book about one of those holidays better than somebody who only celebrates Christmas. Or vice versa, if you only celebrate Christmas, you're going to understand a book better that is about Christmas than maybe somebody who doesn't celebrate Christmas. That's a text-to-self. We also make text-to-self connections based on things that we've seen in person. So if you've seen somebody else do something, you could connect to, or if you've seen a type of vehicle. For example, if you lived in a world where you had never seen a car and you read a book about a car, it wouldn't make very much sense to you. But because you may have seen a car, you may have even ridden in a car, you're going to be able to understand that and make a better text-to-self connection. We make text-to-self connections based on emotions we have felt. So if you read a book about somebody who's feeling very sad because they've lost their pet, and you have felt sad about something before, you're going to better understand how that character is feeling. We make text connections about life events that we've experienced, birthday parties, about having a new baby brother or baby sister, about losing a toy. Anything that's happened to you can be a part of a text-to-self connection. So now we're going to move on to the second type of text connections that you can make, which is text-to-text connections. Remember, text, we said, is anything you read. So a text-to-text connection is making a connection between one thing you read and another thing you read. Okay? This is why it's so important to read a lot. The more things that you read, the more things that you do, the more connections you'll have, the better you'll understand what you're reading. So we can connect text to text from whatever we're reading to any book that we have read or a book that we've listened to, okay, during a read aloud or a parent reading to you, any stories that we have read or listened to, any articles that we have read or listened to, that includes newspapers, magazines, any plays that we have read or listened to or watched performed is the same type of concept because you're getting that storyline. If you have been to the theater and you have watched A Christmas Carol, that is still experiencing the story in the same way as if you had read it or you had listened to it. And you can make a text-to-text connection. Maybe you make the connection that Scrooge in The Christmas Carol is very similar to the Grinch and The Grinch Stole Christmas. When you read those two stories, those two characters are very similar, and we can make that text-to-text connection because we have read or experienced both. You can also make text-to-text connections from poems that you have read. Like I said before, a text-to-text connection can be any type of text. It could be a letter. It could be anything that you read that you make a connection to. The third type of text connection is text-to-media connections. So for example, we can make a connection between the text that we read and a TV show that we have watched. Maybe the character in your book is going through something similar as the character in Doc McStuffins went through. You can make a text connection to movies that you have watched. You can make a text connection to websites that you have explored. You can make a text connection to the video games you have played. You can make a text connection to a program or an app that you have used. And you can make a text connection to the songs you hear. These are all things that we experience on a day-to-day basis, and they can absolutely be used to make connections and help us understand better what we're reading. The last type of text connection that we have are text-to-world connections. Text-to-world connections are things that are further out. They're not necessarily something that we have experienced, whether it's by listening to or reading about. Instead, they're things that are happening in the world or have happened in the world that we know about that we're going to connect to. So it could be an important event from history. Perhaps in your social studies class you learned about the explorers and conquistadors that came over and conquered and discovered here in the New World in the Americas. And you read a book that talks about the Native Americans during that time period. You have some background knowledge, and you can connect that background knowledge to these new facts that you're reading. That's a text-to-world connection. You might connect with current stories, current events, things that are on the news, the election that's going on, or something that has happened important in your area can easily be connected to the things that we read. You might connect about important people in history, important people in current events, and often you will find that knowing people either in history or in current events is important when you read because those people will be referenced. So if the story is talking about Alexander the Great and you have read or learned or studied about Alexander the Great, you're going to have a better understanding of this new story that you're reading that is talking about Alexander the Great. But if you've never read it, it makes it harder to connect. We can make text connections of places that we've heard of but never been. I, for example, have heard of St. Petersburg in Russia. I've heard amazing stories about it. I've never been there. But if I read a story that talked about St. Petersburg, I could connect to the fact that I know about it. I could connect to a news story I might have heard about it or something somebody else had told me about it and build my understanding of what this news story was trying to tell me about. We can make connections with conversations that we've had with other people. In fact, talking to other people, especially people who have lived in different areas of the world than you, or who have experienced different things, people who are much older or much younger than you. They expose you to different worldviews and different points of views and allow you to have much deeper connections on a text-to-world scale. And we could also make connections with trends in history or in science. For example, if we know about the immunization trend to keep people healthier that has happened only in the last 100 years, where you go to the doctor and you get a shot to help you not get sick, and we read a story that happened 200 or 300 years ago, before immunizations happened, we can make a connection that, oh, I learned that immunizations have only happened since this date, and this story happened before then, so these children must not have been immunized, and they might have a sickness like measles or polio or something along those lines that might make them sick in a way that I've never been sick. That's a text-to-world connection. Okay, now we're going to actually try it. This is a small article here on the holiday of Hanukkah. We're going to read it and see if we can come up with a text connection from each of the 4 categories. So let's first read the holiday of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a holiday from the religion of Judaism. It celebrates a miracle that happened in 165 BC. While the Jewish people were rebuilding their temple, they ran out of oil for their lamps. The oil left should have lasted only 1 day, but instead it lasted for 8 days and nights. Today, people celebrate Hanukkah by lighting candles in the menorah for the 8 nights. Celebration begins at sundown during the days of Hanukkah. Each night, families read from the Torah and sing songs in Hebrew, the language of Judaism. The people will play a game with a top called the dreidel and eat sweets and potato pancakes called latkes. On a piece of paper, I'd like you to write the words text to self, text to text, text to media, and text to world, and see how many connections you can make. Go ahead and press pause in the video and take the time to try this out. I hope that you've tried it out. Now I'm going to share with you the connections that I made. For text to self, this article reminded me of my friend Adina, who actually celebrates Hanukkah. So while I don't celebrate it, I know somebody who does, and I know how nice she is, and that's a text to self connection. For text to text, reading this story, which mentioned the menorah, reminded me of a book that I've read to my class called Hanukkah Around the World, which tells about all kinds of different types of menorahs that they have in the different countries where people celebrate Hanukkah. For text to media, reading this story about Hanukkah reminded me of a Sesame Street episode that I have watched with my son, where the characters celebrate Hanukkah and they light the menorah and they have latkes. For a text-to-world connection, reading about the potato pancakes reminded me of the pancakes that are often made in Russia. My husband lived in Russia and he loves potato pancakes and has made them for me. So this is a little bit of text to self, but it really just made me think about Russia, and it made me wonder how many people celebrate Hanukkah in Russia. Okay? So all of these things, all of these connections have helped me understand and remember what I read, and also by writing down these connections, I am going to hopefully remember what I read longer. When I do text connections, I take notes. I use sticky notes, and these are my beautiful pictures of sticky notes. I love using Post-it notes because I can take it and I can write on it and I can stick it in my book, and I don't have to worry about the book actually getting hurt, because I don't like people to write in my books. I like to use my books over and over. But sticky notes can be put into my book without hurting my book, and I can come back and remember what connections that I read. So if I'm reading something that I want to make connections on while I'm reading, I am going to have a little pad of sticky notes next to me and a pencil. And every time I make a little connection, I'm going to put in the sticky note and I'm going to jot down my connection. And then, when I'm done reading the book and it's time to write about my book, because that is often something that your teacher will ask you to do. It's something I always ask of my students, is to write about their connections. Now I've got those notes that I took that I can pull out and I can see, oh, that's right, this story reminded me of the Hanukkah's Around the World book, and let me write about that. Um, this sheet that you see is part of a reading response journal, which I hope your teacher has for you. If she doesn't, the link for it is in the description, and she can go ahead and grab it. But it just allows you to write. Don't forget to put in the title and the author, the pages read, because sometimes we don't get a chance to read the whole book. So write what you did read, that way you know what you connected to. And then tell me, this story reminds me of. And it should not be just, this story reminds me of Hanukkah Around the World. That's not writing about your reading, guys. Look at the grading rubric on the bottom here. It tells you exactly what you should be looking for. You should show thinking about your writing. You should explain why and or how you came up with this. And it should give some information from the text to support your thinking. So it should say things like, this text talked about the importance of the menorah to celebrate Hanukkah, and in Hanukkah Around the World, they actually explain that there are different types of menorahs depending on where you live. You want really specific things. This is what was said, because that way we really know you understood, and it helps you remember. At the end of the day, writing it down is using it in another modality. So now you've read it, you've taken notes on it, you've written about it, and you are 3 times more likely to remember it. Alright guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. For more reading comprehension mini lessons, keep checking back to my YouTube page. You can also follow the YouTube page and follow the blog, Rocky's Rad Resources, for reading comprehension videos, for math mini lessons, and for some other lessons coming up. Just go ahead and follow the YouTube channel. That way you'll get a little email reminder every time I upload a new video. Alright guys, have a great day.